This is Old Park House in Devizes. It is a Grade 2 listed building, built in 1820 to 1830 according to what's recorded on the Historic England website. It's built in Bath stone. Now, Devizes is at the top of a hill and Bath is a considerable distance away downhill, so it will have been a hell of an exercise getting all that stone up to Devizes. So it would have been cut in Bath, loaded on barges and taken up the flight of locks up the Kennet-on-Avon Canal to a wharf somewhere in the town centre. And even from there it will needed to have been carted across the town to this site, which is, some considerable distance from the town centre. So getting all that stone to site will have been done at considerable expense and considerable effort. Devizes is a brick-built town. This is the left side elevation of the same house, which is quite clearly brick-faced. This elevation cannot be seen without some effort, i.e. the elevation in the previous photograph is the front elevation and the right side elevation can be seen by the approach to the house, but this elevation is out of sight, so there is no point in spending a vast amount of money facing this elevation in stone. These walls are approximately 450 millimetres thick, and one is not going to build a wall of that depth out of natural stone. It's too expensive. So the house is built out of brick, and this stone is attached to the front elevation. The builders therefore had to come up with a method of fixing the stonework to the brickwork, and this is what has eventually become a problem. These following three pictures illustrate the problem. The first one, you can see two little holes in the wall with little black squares. These are the ends of the fixings, and these are of some form of ferrous metal. Now, as this metal rusts, there's an expansion process, and this expansion process is breaking up the ashlar facing. So you can see the pock mark on the left-hand side has a vertical fracture above and below it, and then there's a little bit of masonry coming off the wall below with another vertical fracture below it, and the same sort of problem illustrated to the right-hand side. This second picture illustrates more of the same. This picture illustrates an earlier attempt to repair the problem. The little bits of weathered, well, it's not weathered, is it, but popped off stone have been knocked off, and somebody has filled the hole with lime mortar, but the problem there is that the process of expansion has continued and the new mortar is being forced off the wall as well. So the repair needs to be repeated. So let's clamber around on the scaffolding and see what we can find. And here we are up close and personal with a metal fixing bracket, which I don't know, what can we gather from that? It's very, very rusty. And the stonemason here has been digging away. I mean, interestingly, you can see through the ashlar and the inner skin is brick. So who'd have thought it? But there's a rusty metal peg that's gone all the way through the ashlar and into the brick wall. And over here we can see little bunch of metal brackets, and they are the things that were fixing the ashlar to the brickwork. So as far as I can see, it's the hooked end that sits inside the brick wall and the unhooked end which is sticking into the ashlar, and For example, the scale, you know, they're that big. So here we have one of those metal brackets, pegs. I'll have to look up what it's really called, and it evidently tapers, so we've got that's the end that was sticking outwards, and that's the end that was hooked into the brick wall, which is behind the stone, and we can see it's a bit expanded and ragged, and I think, what's the theory, that ferrous metals can expand between 6 times and 20 times. And here we've got a little collection of cuboidal new stones which are going to be slotted into the walls as a repair. And there we have a number of new repairs done to the walls. So for the short term it's going to look very spotty, isn't it? And I think in there we can see what is a very simple replacement metal bracket. It's basically just one of those metal straps you use in a truss rafter roof, which has been sawn off, screwed to the brickwork and left projecting into the stonework. Let's just hope the stonemason knows what he's doing, and just above it we can still see the remaining end of a metal piece which has not been chopped out. So I'm not quality control, but I'm not absolutely sure this is the best piece of work ever. This is a listed building in a conservation area. It was built in around, well, early 1700s. It looks like it has had a bit of roof spread in the past, which has disorientated those first floor window openings. But it has had, or what looks like, ongoing roof movement now, a couple of 100 years later, which is a bit confusing. But reading between the lines, the most recent owners have what have they done? They've reintroduced living accommodation to the roof space where perhaps there wasn't any, or hasn't been any for a long time. So I think they've rebalanced the house, new loads that it wasn't used to, so it seems to be moving again. And furthermore, they don't appear to have got planning permission, listed building consent for this. There's listed building consent for Velux windows in the rear roof slopes, but then they've put in a new staircase and done other things too. So I didn't know that when I showed up, so some of my commentary is a bit, wrong, I suppose. Well, what I can see here is that the vertical section of the window is leaning out, and to the right side of it there's new mortar pointing there, and there's a gap between the mortar and the masonry or the stone beneath it, which suggests that it has moved forward since it's been repointed. So the indications are that it's still moving. There's the other side of the house, and the extreme left side of the window frame again seems to be at the front of a bulge. So it looks like, well, roof thrust seems to be the issue here. So if we go inside, right, here's the roof. So from the road, this would be the left hand side, going through the world's smallest door opening. We've got purlins, which are ancient and somewhat rotten. I mean, that's an unusual noise, isn't it, for a purlin? And I can stick my fingernail in there very easily, but I'm sure there's some dense wood inside. Going on off a little tangent, down there we've got rot So a wet rotting ceiling and a wet rotting carpet, but I'm here to talk about structural movement, I think. Back through the world's smallest door. I'm on my knees to get through here, and we've got the first and only pair of principal rafters, which one would imagine are sitting on a tie beam down below. We'll go and check that for sure later. And then through an almost normal sized door, we've got the right hand side of the roof void with purlins front and rear. This purlin, I believe, there's a little picture book downstairs, it's probably a new one which they've painted white just to ruin it. So let's go downstairs and see if we can find a tie beam underneath that principal rafter pair. And there it is. So there is a tie beam, assuming it's fixed properly to the feet of the principal rafters, and here there is, well, half a beam. So there's not much tying the front and rear roofs together. So that's why there might be a risk of thrust, but you'd have thought in a house this age it would have sorted out by now. There's the wet patch underneath the rotting carpet upstairs, so I shall go and have another look at the roof, which otherwise looks fine. And then the leaning forward bulging window opening. I mean, there is, bearing in mind they've just painted it, a new gap of about 1 millimetre there. I mean, can you see that? You can see where the paint's been split into, so that seems to suggest this house is on the move again. And if we go round to the other extreme end, to that right hand side window, which seemed to be going for a wander, once again there is, let's get a bit of better light on that, a gap opening up between the window and the wall, both that side and perhaps even more significantly that side. So if roof thrust is a problem, why is it a problem now? Well, I suppose the answer to that question might be that they started using upstairs and filling it with beds and books and people and stuff. Probably elm floorboards, are they? A bit wormy. Anyway, let's go and have a look at the roof outside and see if we can find an example of a hole which might explain why there's a rotting patch upstairs. Well, that roof leak will be somewhere over that window. If we go in a bit closer, just about see the green edge of a modern underlay. But I can't see any hole. It is possible that the tiles don't have much of an overlap, so there's a bit of wind-blown rain penetration. I saw a sparrow fly in there. Is it possible that could be a vast amount of sparrow urine? Seems unlikely. So I'm a little bit confused. Wind-blown rain penetration, condensation, leaking from higher up, running down to where it meets the floor. Don't know. There you go. I don't know. This is a photograph I found in the house, which is dated 1910. So that bloke in the picture must be about 180 years old now. But if you look at the window top right of the picture, there is a bit of cracking in the top right corner of the wall, which is very similar to what is there today. So it does look like most of the movement that occurred is historic, but well, the indications are that it's moving again. Another thing I discovered after the survey is that a roofer had been instructed to repair the roof shortly before I went to the property, so evidently the reason I couldn't find any damage to the roof resulting in the damp patches internally is because the roof had just been repaired. And that's the end of this presentation.